Yahoo, Mahoutoro desu. Hello, welcome. My name is Mahoutoro. Nice to see all of you. Thank you for clicking on this video. So I'm going to be talking about a book series that I've currently started for my studying of Japanese. And the book series is called 5分後に意外な結末. So I'm reading currently the red book. On the title here it says 赤い悪魔, which is basically the red nightmare. So if you didn't hear about this series, I'll try to put up some pictures so you can see what I'm talking about. But essentially this book series is an anthology series. So every book has a lot of different random stories from various authors, right? So every book is a color. If I believe that's correct. Every book is a color, and the first one, I believe this is the first one, is a red. So this one's the red nightmare. I believe the next one is maybe the blue nightmare, etc., etc. So there's a lot in this series. I really want to read all of them. I think they're very good for studying on a moderate level. It's very good for vocabulary. You get to see how most words are used in a sentence. Some vocabulary is not really used. Some of it is kind of poetic. I guess it depends on the author, it depends on the story. But yeah, you get to see a lot of different cool stuff. It's a very good way to learn some high-level vocabulary without getting into the super more detailed novels, which I hope to get to in the future at some point. So I guess let's just go ahead and get started. Let's dive in. So the book starts. I want to start with just the introduction here. So I don't know yet if this is going to be a recurring theme, but for this book it seems like it is. We have a character who I guess you could say he lives in a time beyond time, and there's kind of if you imagine just like some doorways all over the place. It's supposed to represent each story that we're about to go into. So he's kind of our crypt keeper, I guess, in the sense of Tales of the Crypt, or he's our guide through all of these different stories, I guess is the idea. So it starts with kind of a idea like that, and then we step through our first door in our first story. So our first story here, I want to check out. Okay. So our first story here is called Daiko no Puro, which you could translate to essentially meaning the pro substitute, I suppose is how you would say that. The pro substitute. So like it kind of puts off an image of someone who, like a freelancer, you know, he'll do stuff for you and he's a pro at it, essentially is what that is. So I'm going to take a look at the author here because I want to give everybody the correct credit, but please forgive me, I'm still learning kanjis, and sometimes when you read kanji, depending on if it's a name or the actual noun, it will have a different pronunciation. Same with verbs too. So typically with names, there could be many different pronunciations for one particular kanji. So just because it's pronounced one way when used in a verb or a noun doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same when it's in a name. So keep that in mind. I will write it up so you can see it at the very least. At least that way somebody who knows how it's pronounced can see how it's pronounced. But from what I understand, this person's name or their pen name rather. Some of these are, I believe, most of these are pen names. This one is Tachibana Tsubasa. So I believe that's what that is. So that's the person who made this particular story that I'm about to go over in a second here. So, like I said, I will. Past editing me will put up what it looks like, so that way people can read it if you can read that. So here we go. Let's jump into it. It's only a few pages long, but I want to talk about this kind of stuff because there's no English translation for this kind of stuff, and these are really interesting stories. So by the way, just so you have an idea for what I want to do with this kind of series, I'm not going to give a word-for-word translation. I could probably do it if you gave me enough time, but A, I don't have that time. I just don't, right? I have work and stuff. B, I'm pretty sure that's illegal if you don't have permission. I'm not really sure. I'm not a legal person or anything, but I'm pretty confident if I make some sort of earnings off of translating someone else's work without their permission, I feel like that's not cool. That's not that's not really legal, I think. So I'm not going to do that. But I will give a general summary and some form of opinion. I feel like that's at least unique enough, right? So, okay. So essentially, the way this story starts, it starts out with a man. They don't tell you the man's name. That's another thing. Is a lot with these anthology stories. Sometimes you will not get a name. It's just the guy, the man. So in this story, it starts with a man drinking very heavily at a bar. He seems very depressed, and it explains that every day he is harassed by his boss. It's kind of like a power harassment thing. So he gets yelled at, he gets told he's useless, he's told that the new employees are better than him, they're more preferable than him. He might as well just go kill himself or something like that. He's a really bad person. And he hates his job, the guy drinking. He hates his job, so he's drinking it away. And he mumbles under his breath, he says, man, I wish he was gone. I wish he would just disappear from the earth. And he notices that the very good-looking bartender, it talks a bit about how this bartender looks like, oh, he's so fashionable, so stylish, and he's really cool. He's like polishing a glass in the corner, and he overhears him, so he feels like, oh no, he's gonna start judging me or something. But instead, the bartender gives him a cool little look and says, yeah, me too. I hate those kind of people. I hate those guys. It really sucks. So my boss is like that too. I hate that stuff. I used to have a boss like that. So they start talking, and eventually it gets to the point where one of them mentions, like, if I could, I'd kill him with my two hands. I would. I'd kill him. I'd do it myself. And I think the bartender mentions, that could be arranged, And so the drinking guy, he starts to get a little nervous. He's like, well, what do you mean? And so the bartender goes on to explain, this isn't my real job. This is actually a job I'm doing for someone else. I'm doing it for someone else. They asked me to do it. So I'm doing it for them. So my actual job is I go doing other people's jobs for them. And I've been hired by writers, I've been hired by actors, I've been hired by famous people, and I've done everything for them in certain intervals whenever they need a break or whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. It's none of my concern. They just pay me and I do it. And so at first the guy's kind of skeptical. He's like, no, I can do that. You can't do that. Like maybe if it was like a easy job, like a janitor or like a bartender, I could believe that. But a writer, an actor? What do you mean? What are you talking about? No one can do that. You can't do that. You have to be crazy. And so he says, no, I can. Because I do simulations. I do these simulations and I do a lot of studying. I'm always studying. So I got a lot of skills. I do tons of stuff. I'm really good at it. And he still doesn't really believe him. He's like, no. That's not true. You can't. You got to prove it. Prove it. You can't do it. And so he says, okay, fine. I'll prove it. Come back in a week and I'll prove it to you. And he goes, okay. So he comes back. He leaves. He comes back. And here's where it's a little interesting. So instead of the way this is written, instead of telling you like he came back and XYZ, instead the way it goes off is he leaves, and then we get like a kind of like a cut. I don't if you read, sometimes you'll see little marks that kind of imply like we're changing the setting, right? In the same chapter, we're changing the setting. So it changes the setting, and we're in a setting where someone, it doesn't say who, like I said, we don't know who it is. So someone is sneaking into someone's house, someone's apartment. And the apartment itself looks very, very fancy, but there's no guards to be found. There's no security. It's not very good with that kind of stuff. So it's very empty, but it's a very, very nice looking mansion. To the point where there's so much no security. Like there's no security to the point where this guy has done so many jobs like this that this is going to be as easy as crossing the street. That's what they describe it as. It's going to be as easy as crossing the street with no street light, something like that. You just nonchalantly go on a crosswalk and cross the street. That's how easy this is going to be. So he goes into the hallway and starts hearing a really gross sound, to which he opens the door and sees that it's his target. He sees that it's just this gross, fat, old man that, like, I guess they describe him as in the same way you would describe someone who's as fat as a cat. You know, he's like rich and, you know, just disgusting fat rich guy is essentially what the image is putting off here. And his belly's exposed and just like drool coming off it. It just looks gross. So he's looking at this guy and he thinks to himself, you're the kind of guy who flaunts their power and tries to dominate people with your money, and you just treat people like crap. You don't deserve to be on this earth. I'll take care of you myself. I'll dispose of you myself. So it starts going into a somewhat of a brief description, I should say, more of a vivid description of him stabbing him with a knife he had in his back pocket, and, you know, holding his throat down while he gags to death, and eventually he just dies. And right there in the bed, blood soaked. The guy who murdered him has no remorse for what he just did. And then he quickly disappears into the night as fast as he showed up. So that's the end of the scene. Then we change scenes again, and we see that the story that we just read was the story that the bartender wrote for the guy who was drinking that last week on a small little sheet of paper. So it describes that the guy was reading that story, and it was so vivid and so well written, he basically could see it in his mind's eye as clear as he could see what's in front of him right now. And he was kind of shocked. He's like, wow, that was really good. Maybe there is something to you having that kind of skill with, substituting for other people in their jobs, like that actor and stuff. Maybe there's something to that. I believe you now. And so the bartender brings up, yeah, well, I mean, it's a living. Well, how about that murder job? So how about that murder? let's talk about that. And so the bartender says, you know what? I hate my boss, but maybe last week I felt that way. Maybe I did. Maybe I really did want him dead, but I don't want it. I'm not going to take that risk. No, it's too much. It's too much. I don't want to do it. So he backs out. He says, no, I'm going to take it back. I take it back. It was really good. That was a very good story, but I apologize for you wasting your time. I'm going to leave now. So the bartender doesn't really react. He doesn't show any sign of disappointment. He doesn't really show any sign of whatever. He's just like, all right, I understand. You can leave. And so takes his leave. But as he's leaving, bartender starts thinking to himself. And it's kind of the last bit of the story. He says, as he's polishing his glass, he thinks to himself, you know, I was really in a rut with that story script I had to write, because the story that he had to write, I forgot to mention, that story it was one of his other current jobs. He was currently also employed by a writer who needed a book and he was actually having some trouble with writing that book. So because the writing, I guess, for him was a little more difficult than acting or what have you. So he starts to mention to himself, I was really having trouble with that writing, but I guess it's true what they say. Real experience really helps with writing a story. I really should have had that guy pay me off something before I did that job for him for free. But I guess I can overcharge the writer and maybe get a little extra money from that, because it did turn out really good, so I'm glad I went and did that night. And so basically the conclusion is bartender actually turned out to have went and murdered that guy after all, but he didn't really get paid for it. I guess he assumed that maybe the guy who was drinking would have taken the job, and then he would have surprised him and said, "Oh, I already did it. Don't even worry about it. Just pay me now." But yeah, so that was the first story. That was story number one. And man, I thought that started pretty strong. I was like, wow, that was nuts. Pretty good. It was only a few pages, maybe like 10 pages. It wasn't even that bad. But yeah, all of these are very short. Some of them are shorter than others. Like this next one is a little shorter. This one is called Hiraita Mado. So this one was written by, I'm going to go ahead and look at the name here. So let's see something. It says here, oh man, I think there's a few names on this one. I'm not really sure. The first one says here Saki. And then here, I know that says, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. Instead of me struggling to pronounce names, because I haven't gotten to that point in my studying yet, I'm going to be learning how to read names soon. I'm getting ready to take the JLPT here in a bit, within the next month, so I want to be taking the N3. I feel like I'm almost ready for the N2, but it's just kind of that thing where I'd rather just take the one lower, because regardless of whether you pass or not, you gotta wait a year, and I'd rather have a passing test that I can use to move along with, work here in Japan. Let's see. So here's what I'll do. I'll put it up on screen, and if I find the way to pronounce it while I'm editing it, then I'll put it up there. But otherwise, I'll just how about this? From now on, I'll put it up on screen so everyone can see it. That way, at least the people who know how to read it can read it. Okay, so next story. Here we go. Let's jump in. Yeah, right, here we go. So, starts out here. We have a name for this person now. So we start out with another guy. His name is Frampton. Frampton Natoru. So he has an issue with people, just in general. He is not a social person. He doesn't like interacting with people. He hates talking to people. He thinks it's a waste of time and a burden on his life. That's basically where he's at. But he lives in a city, and his job in the city life has kind of been beating him down. He's, like I said, I guess he's a hermit or something, but essentially he's just not well. He's getting kind of sick. His doctor's telling him, you have a sickness that essentially the only cure is human interaction. Is basically what he's basically telling him, you have hermit sickness. You need to talk to people. Please talk to people. So essentially he decides, I don't want to do that. I'll just move to the country. I'll move to the country and I won't have to interact with anyone, and I'll just live my own life. But his sister explains, I'm not going to have a brother who's going to turn into what would you say it? a recluse. He said her sister, or his sister says, I'm not going to have a brother who's going to turn into a recluse and then die in the country by himself. You need to talk to people. Here, I'll give you the address of some people that I talked with when I moved to the country back where you're going, because I had to move for work. She had to commute to that area when she worked at another job, and she says, I know people here. I'll give you an address. You can talk to them. I know they exist. They're really nice people, very nice country people. You'll love them. And then she hopes that, just by talking to them, maybe they'll become friends, maybe they'll get close, and then, he won't be sick anymore. He'll have some friends to talk to, and he won't be this gross hermit recluse that is antisocial and hates people anymore. So that's her hope. So she gives her the address. She gives him the address and gives him I guess the way you could explain this is it's not a resume. She gives him a paper that is essentially a self-introduction of himself. Because I guess he's just that antisocial. And this is so that way he won't get turned away at the door should he meet people. So she gives him that. She gives him a note that explains the situation, and says hey, essentially just saying hey, people remember me. We talked about, etc., etc. So he moves. He goes to the country, and at first he's like, I really don't want to do this, but he kind of gets a little stroke of just my sister went to the trouble of doing this. I might as well at least try it once. So he goes, says, okay. And he walks over to the next house, which is about a 5-minute walk, and knocks on the door, introduces himself, says that I think maybe she had even called in advance or something for this particular house, but essentially the person who answers his door is a 15-year-old girl, and she says, who are you? We don't get many people here. Who are you? And he says, oh, I'm Frampton, friends of such and such. I think I don't think they mentioned the sister's name, but she says I'm friends, or rather, my sister was friends with your mom, who I am here to now talk with, I guess. And she lets him in. Excuse me. They sit down at the table. The daughter goes up to check on her mom. The mom is getting ready to come down, but I guess she's putting on makeup, etc. So she comes down and says, my mom's not going to be here for another few minutes. We can talk, I guess, if you want to talk, I guess. So it's a little awkward at first, but eventually they start talking a little bit, and the girl mentions oh, so you've never been here. Your sister was here, but you've never been here. And he says, yeah, I've never been in this area. I don't know your mom. Your mom doesn't know me. We don't know each other. She just knows my sister. And the daughter says, oh, well, between you and me, so you know, don't mention this to my mom, but between you and me, when your sister left, my mom was heartbroken. She just was destroyed on the inside. She was very sad. We were all very sad. And my dad and my sister's brother, my uncle, as well as I believe it was their 2 sons. Yeah, I believe it was. There's their 2 sons and their dog, and our dog, excuse me. It was one son. It was, so she says, my dad, my uncle's son, and my dog, they all went hunting one day, because we did that. We would do that with her sister. We would do that. We did stuff like that, really fun stuff. But one day, after she had moved, they went out hunting, and to add on to the depression that my mom had from your sister moving, they never came back. And we all think they just got lost in the swamp or something. There's a swamp nearby that they use for the hunting grounds, And they just never came back. The police went and looked, and they couldn't find any bodies. And ever since then, that window behind you has just been open. And as another, I think I forgot to mention, the title of this book translates to The Open Window. It's the title of the book. Yeah, the Open Window. And so she says that window, it's been open the whole time. She opens it every day. And she says that one of these days, they'll come through that window. They'll come inside. And, they'll come back, and she's just crazy. And the way it's described, I think it's not so much a window as it is a screen door. If you know what I mean. So it's not like a window as in like a small little square, like they're gonna climb through the window. It's more like a screen door window. So it's like a see-through door. So she says one of these days they'll come back. They're gonna come back, and every night she closes the window, and every morning she opens it, leaves it open. And Frampton thinks to himself, yeah, I mean it wasn't so strange that the door was open. I thought it was just the nice weather, but I guess I could see how that could be kind of strange with the window open. But yeah, I didn't know your mom went through that kind of stuff. I'm sorry. And she says, yeah, no, between you and me, don't tell her I said this, but I think she's nuts. She's crazy. She thinks that the dead is gonna come back, and whatever. But truthfully, every night, sometimes I hear noises, and I think maybe they are gonna come back. And like as she's finishing that sentence, the mom comes down the stairs and says, "Sorry, Mickey, wait. Sorry. I was putting on makeup. I was getting ready. Sorry, I'm here now. So you're the sister of my friend, etc." They start talking, and Frampton says, "Oh, yeah. We were just talking about this window." And she goes, "Oh yeah. No, my husband and my husband and my brother will be back soon. They went out with my nephew and their dog and what have you." And he kind of like Frampton looks at the daughter, and the daughter makes like a face like, oh, she's at it again. And Frampton goes, oh wow, it's true. Okay. She really thinks they're just gonna come back. They're gonna come back, and whatever. And so she starts talking, and she will not get off of that subject. She just continually talks about how much her husband likes hunting and how much like she loves them and she misses them, and they're gonna come back someday. They're gonna come back, or what have you. They're gonna come back any minute now. That's what she said. She's gonna come back any minute now. Any minute now they'll be back before the sun sets. And Frampton is thinking like, oh man, this woman is broken. She's completely insane. And I think the sun's setting. We're at the point where the sun is setting. It's getting dark. Frampton has not said a single word. So much for trying to interact with people. It's really only reinforcing his hate of conversing with people. And suddenly the mom jumps up and says, "Look, there they are now. Look, they're coming. Here they are." And Frampton, he gets chill down his spine. He's like, "What?" So he turns around, and yeah, there's like 3 humanly figures. There's just little shadows coming from the distance. They're walking toward him, and there's a dog, and one of them's holding a gun, and he essentially pisses himself. He just says, "Oh, hell no." And he runs straight for the door and does not look back. And so the 3 figures get closer, and they come through the window. They come through the door, and the dad says, "Who was that?" Who was that guy? And the wife, the lady of the house, says, "I don't know, some weirdo. He just wouldn't, he was really rude. He would just like try. During their conversation, Frampton would try to get in a word. He would try to talk about why he came to the country. But so she says something like, "Oh, he was really rude. Like while I was talking, he would just constantly interrupt and try to talk about himself. It was very annoying. and like he's like, she said, I don't know why he ran out like that. I was telling him that you were going to come back any minute. And the daughter says, I think he was afraid of dogs. I think he, like, before Mom had come down the stairs, he had mentioned he was afraid of dogs. And I think when he saw Poochie over there, yeah, got a little scared and ran off. He said that the last time he interacted with a dog was when he was a kid. He was in a junkyard with his friends, and at some point he got cornered by two of them in a grave after running away from the junkyard. He had jumped into a cemetery grave, and he was surrounded by two of them for an entire night. He couldn't sleep. So I guess if I had that kind of experience, I'd be scared of dogs too. So that's what she told her dad. And our story ends with the book essentially saying that this girl's kind of strength is making up stories on the fly. She's really, really good at making up stories on the fly. So that's where that story ends. And that's it. That's pretty much it. So I think that'll do it for now. For my first video of this, I think that'll do it. I think I have a lot more. This book is over 200 pages long. It's about 300 pages. That was two of very. How many stories? I'm just gonna take a look. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna take a look at the index here. How many stories are in here? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14. A lot. There's at least 30 stories in here. There's at least 30 stories in here. But I don't want to go off and just do as many as possible in one video. I want to do it little by little. I want to see if this gets any traction. I want to see if people like this first. If people don't like this, then I'll just stop. I'll do something else. But I want to. If you do end up liking my little overview of this in English, if you do end up liking this, please leave a like. Please comment in the up and down in the bottom in the comment section if you like this. I really do like translating things from Japanese. I love this language. It's great. I've wanted to learn it since I was back in junior high. Yeah, I lived in my hometown was a desert, so we didn't really get many Japanese people there. So not really much opportunity for teachers or anything. And way back when, the internet was not much of a tool yet or existent. So in my area, it was not very existent. So please let me know. I love reading this stuff. I love learning this language. I don't want to stop. So just let me know. Let me know if this was interesting, and I'll keep going. Maybe we'll add a few more stories next time. Because I know I'm gonna try to get through every single one of these books once I get faster at reading. I'm currently on page 61 of 300. I'm gonna say, just to round it up, it's a little bit 300. Yeah, just let me know. Have a nice day. Mata ko yan,